Hello and welcome to episode 1179 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Monday, May 22nd. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this afternoon by Justin Mason. Justin, I'd say good morning just because you're so tired, but it is the afternoon. How you doing?
Yeah. If you're looking for a reason not to have kids, it's a 4-year-old sleeping in your bed all
With
night
night
and
terrors.
with night terrors. Yeah, it was a pretty brutal night. So I'm
Yes.
not quite all here, but I am here, and we are going to talk some baseball.
And we're going to make it work, absolutely. So we've got, we don't have much news, unless I'm missing. I'll do a little refresh like I always do right before the show starts.
Pretty quiet.
It's pretty quiet as far as like actionable news here. We do have one tidbit, then we're going to get into the pickup. So let's just go
you know why there isn't very much news, right?
No.
Because everybody's already hurt. Like it's already like, there's no one left to get hurt.
Who else can even get hurt at this point?
So like of course there's no news. We haven't had any new players to replenish all the injured ones.
And interestingly, the news is about a player who is hurt and consistently, and now he's hurt longer. Lance McCullers Jr. is going to be out until July. Outside of a unique situation, we'll talk NFBC first. No IL spots, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not holding Lance McCullers Jr.
You shouldn't have had him on your roster to begin with. Like it.
Yes.
You might have picked him up in the last week or something like that in order to like stash him because there was, reports of him throwing bullpens and stuff like that. But ultimately, this is the kind of guy that should be pretty much on your do not draft list and then should not be held when he is hurt. So,
yeah. That's how I feel too about McCullers. I love him, I root for him, but like it's just so hard. And now early to mid-July, if you are in a luxury where you have no injuries and maybe you can stash in an NFBC situation and there's nobody else you want, okay, hold as long as you can, but those are pretty unique situations. What about IL? And, a lot of the big venues, ESPN, Yahoo, they still have limited IL.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of, does McCullers make the cut there in a 3 IL situation? Let's say you've got, let's say you got 2 guys right now. You got Eloy and somebody else longer term. I'm trying to think of somebody. Eloy's on his way back. That's why I mentioned him specifically. Do you just go with the standard hold McCullers till you can't? Like, who kicks him off? Like, only superstars, mid-tier guys? I know it's hard to calculate every scenario, but what are you doing with McCullers in IL leagues even where you have, say, 3 spots max?
I mean, and I'm not holding him over anybody who's going to be back before him. Like, I just, because you can always drop him, and then when Eloy's back in 2 weeks, pick him back up. Like, I don't think that a lot of people are going to.
No, Eloy's supposed to be back this week.
Oh, okay. So
Fingers crossed.
I guess then you.
So I'm holding him, but so you're not holding McCullers over anybody that's due back before him, even if their raw talent is a bit lesser, but that they're still draftable and viable and all that. I think I'm with you. I think it's just really, really tough to hold them outside of really unique circumstances where maybe you've been the blessed team in your league health-wise, and you can hold them as maybe a luxury because the waiver wire hasn't been very, giving in terms of pitching outside of the prospects. That's really it with McCullers. I don't know. Because what are we going to get when he even comes back? That's the thing that I don't know about with McCullers.
Is he gonna he's gonna be able to go 5 innings? I don't know, but I mean, here's the thing about like leagues like ESPN and Yahoo and CBS where you've got these IL spots, but like when you go to pick up an IL guy, you can't just automatically throw him in to your IL. You have to put him on your reserve list and then move him to your IL.
So you do have to cut somebody.
Someone's got to burn a reserve spot in order to pick him up. Mm-hmm. And I don't think a lot of people are going to be willing to do that at this point. And so I think you can pretty easily drop him. And then when you want to burn that reserve spot to pick him up, you can. But ultimately, I don't like doing that. And I don't like holding the guy on my IL when I've got other guys. And almost every single team has multiple IL guys to hold right now.
Yeah. And the really tough part with McCullers here specifically is just his history of being hurt. Mm-hmm. That this setback might not even be the only one. So.
Oh, absolutely. Like, if he doesn't pitch this year, are you going to be surprised? Because I won't be.
Not even in the slightest. I hope he does. I'm not trying to be negative about it. It's just the fact of the matter with Lance McCullers Jr. is that health has been a big issue with him throughout his career. So we wish him the best, but right now it's not looking good. Let's get into the pickups. We talked about this guy. Actually, our first two guys we talked about on Friday, one in news, one in the two-step. Matthew Liberatore, we're going to start with him. We talked about him, and the news was that he's staying in the rotation. Okay, great. Let's go out and get him. Let's spend on him. And then he relieved on Sunday. How did that impact how you treated Matthew Liberatore here? We're starting with, of course, deep league pickups. He was also picked up in shallow leagues, but we start at the deeper leagues and work our way down. So he's picked up everywhere Liberatore was. People were still aggressive, but did you tap the brakes at all, seeing that he had a 1-inning relief outing, or did you think that was just like a bullpen day thing and that everything's still on track?
They had mentioned that this might happen, that if they needed, that the bullpen had been overworked, and that if they needed him, he was going to be available at the bullpen, but that he would still make a start later in the week.
Yeah,
if that's the case. So it didn't really affect me. I will say though, and I mentioned this on the Sunday pod, that this was not going to be a big FAAB weekend for me. That I didn't feel like there was that many guys that were real big movers.
same.
I did make a mistake though, because
Did you get Nick Allen again?
no, I didn't get Nick Allen. It's the opposite mistake, right? So I am a huge proponent of, even if you aren't super interested in kind of a quote unquote big name guy, you should always put in a keep him honest bid. And I didn't in Tout Wars on Matthew Liberatore because I didn't really need him. He wasn't a huge target for me. Matt McLain was a big target for me, and so I knew I was going to be spending a good amount of money there. Mm-hmm. And I didn't put any bids in on Liberatore, and he went for $8 in Tout Wars mix.
Wow. Is that out of 1,000 or 100?
Out of 1,000.
That's out of 1,000. That's a little bit in line, actually. It's more than or less than half the price of this, but the cheapest main event bid for Liberatore was $19.
Yeah.
That's not even a keep him honest. That's I'm just throwing this out, and if I get lucky, I'm the luckiest person in the main event, because the next lowest on Liberatore was 64 out of 1,000. Mm-hmm. I think the 60s and 70s folks that won him, those were keep him honest, I think. And I don't say this to denigrate the person that got him for 19. Good on you. But that's not even a keep him honest. That's just a Hail Mary.
He went for 154 in my main with a backup bid of 100. So
yeah, like I was never... Pitching is the only thing that's going well for my team. He went 155 with a backup of 85, so a little inefficient there on Liberatore. There were some bids like that where there was the one person that really liked Liberatore, and then the backup. Like, you look at the high end there, all the ones that went over 200, and there were 8 out of the 53 main events. All of them were well ahead of the next bid. None of the backup bids reached 200. 2 of them were under 100. So 219 against 81, 217 against 92. That's got to sting a little bit when you're dropping that kind of money. But if you're confident, that's the tough part. You never know what your league's going to do, right? You look at the other leagues and you're like, I wish I was in that league where my bid would have been the most efficient. But it's just hard to ever know, so you got to go with what you're comfortable with. And if you were comfortable paying $217, you can't get hung up on the fact that nobody else was willing to pay more than $92. Okay, so we're not worried about the relief thing, because again, they did mention that. You're right. Do we hope that this gets him pushed? I mean, I know we do. I don't even have to ask it as a question, but do we think this gets him pushed out of the Cincinnati series in Cincy and into the one in Cleveland? Because he was originally slated to go, I think, middle of the week. And now it could be maybe on the weekend, which would put him at Cleveland, which would be just a much better start for Liberatore.
Yeah, no, probably. Maybe they just flip-flop him and Matt's, and he's Thursday, Cincinnati.
That's kind of what I think, too.
I
was hoping on the Cleveland situation. I don't even have him. I'm just saying for a better outing. By the way, they have a weird week next week. St. Louis does. They only have 5 games. That part's not totally crazy. That happens. They have 2 off days in a row. They're off Wednesday and Thursday.
That's weird.
So it's a Monday, Tuesday 2-pack against KC, and then 2 days off. I guess they're walking to Pittsburgh, so they need 2 days off. I don't know what that. It's very bizarre.
Do they have a makeup game they can put there or something? Like,
I have no idea.
That's super weird. I don't remember ever seeing.
Again,
that.
The 5-packs aren't crazy. Those have been happening for the last couple of years. We just had a few last week. My Tigers had one.
None this week, though. So
yeah, everyone's playing at least 6. But it's usually off Monday, off Thursday with the Tuesday, Wednesday 2-pack there. So I don't know, kind of interesting, kind of weird. Let's move on to our next guy here. We did talk about him during the two-step week, so we don't have to get too deep on Brandon Williamson. I'm mostly just curious if you went for him at all. He was not particularly expensive on the main event landscape. His peak was $79 to a backup of 1, so folks weren't really buying into his Coors outing because they looked at the minor league numbers and they saw those are pretty dreadful numbers. So 79 was the high, then a 68, then a 64, then down to 44. That's again out of 1,000 15-team leagues. What do you think of Brandon Williamson? Did you jump in on that because he was at least cheap if you were interested?
He was in my waterfall bids, but I did not end up with him anywhere outside of Tout Wars and then one other league I've got on CBS. I didn't spend more than $7 in any league this week. I mean, I was really, really cheap. So like I had Williamson in the waterfall for like $3 or something like that, but didn't end up with him. I ended up with like Rich Hill and other guys like that, which fine with.
Yeah, but he's in that group. I mean,
the skills are so scary. Like I know the first start was great, but like no.
Respect to everyone realizing and not getting duped by a good start in Colorado by Brandon Williamson. Like he might be good, but he still has to pitch half of his games in Cincinnati, even when he is pitching, and it's a bit nerve-wracking there. So yeah, I'm not terribly surprised by it, but I was wondering if people would get a little overzealous on a cooler start, and they did not for sure. This one was interesting. It's because he's going to get a start, but 35 of the 53 main event leagues picked up Ryan Weathers for San Diego. An interesting prospect from a few years back, has kind of meandered along since then, but now penciled in for Wednesday at Washington, and then which would then set up for a two-step the following week at Miami and home to the Cubs. Are you interested in the young lefty Ryan Weathers for the Padres?
Not particularly. I mean, this is a guy that has not shown amazing skills or like the ability to strike out a lot of batters on a consistent basis. So, and I mean, yeah, San Diego's a good place to pitch. Should be a good team. It should be a better team than it's been playing.
Yeah,
behind.
I think they will be.
I don't know. I mean, they just lost Machado. Like Soto's finally starting to turn things around, but it just feels off. Like,
there is a little bit of like a malaise with them.
Yeah. But
again, I think that's just kind of the malaise hanging over them, and that they will be better. But maybe not. Maybe they'll be a disappointing team that doesn't meet expectations. They're only two. I guess they're 5 games under now. Never mind.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll see. It's still
and
relatively
it's not
early.
a easy division to like build yourself out of a hole when you've got the Dodgers, who are arguably the best team in baseball, and then the Diamondbacks, who are playing really, really well, and the Giants are pesky.
Even your boys, 2 games under 500. That's not bad. 22 and 24 for the Giants. We did not have high expectations for them, and they're playing all right.
Yeah. So
no, I liked Weathers. Like when he first came up, I was excited about his prospect hype. But as you pointed out, missing bats has been a huge issue for him. In 122 major league innings, it's a 17% strikeout rate with a 8% swinging strike rate. Both of those are really unimpressive, and that's not even as a full-time starter. That's with some relief work mixed in. So that leaves me a bit cold, and I wasn't really pushing for any sort of Ryan Weathers action.
Well, and I think what people may have been trying to do is go, oh, well, he's going to have a 2-step that includes Miami next week, which is nice. And he's facing the Nationals this week. But the Nationals are the 7th best team in WRC plus against left-handed pitching.
And they never strike out.
Yeah. They've got a 16% strikeout rate versus left-handed pitching this year. And they've got some real lefty killers on that team. Like, Candelario, Dom Smith are very good against lefties. I don't know that I would want to stream him.
Dom's lefty. Is he good lefty?
I think he is. Maybe I'm wrong.
Either way, the bottom line, your overall numbers are 100% right. They got Lane Thomas, they got Meneses, they got Call. Stone Garrett is a lefty platoon. I mean, he's not like scary or anything. But the bottom line is they put the ball in play. So they probably won't beat him up. But if the ball goes, in their favor, the hits can pile up against Washington. And like I said, punchies are not part of their game at all.
Yeah. Dom Smith this year is hitting .321 against lefties.
Okay, Dom, I see you. Nicely done.
And he's hot right now.
I love
So
Dom Smith. I root for him so hard, man. Like he's not
only
that
one
good,
home run, but
but I
like
do
he
root for
puts the
him.
ball in play.
Hey,
And
that's a lot more than last year.
yeah,
Literally had 0 last year.
yeah,
Let's talk Jared Schuster.
infinite more.
Let's talk Jared Schuster from Atlanta, the prospect. When he first broke camp, there's some excitement. Atlanta prospects, that's one of those teams that kind of gets extra buzz just by virtue, whether you know the player that much or not, you're interested because Atlanta's bringing him up. It did not start off well, but then he dropped a really nice start yesterday, 6 innings, 1 run on a hit. It was a solo shot with a walk and 7 Ks. Beautiful outing, earned him some attention. You know how Sundays go. You have a good day on Sunday, you are now generating interest in fantasy leagues. Was Jared Schuster on your radar, and are you intrigued by him at all going forward now for Atlanta?
I mean, what we talked about last week, like it'd be nice to see like what the data is on how much a player's price goes up based on one good start on the day of FAAB.
I wish you could compare. It'd be hard because you got to have like a similar set of leagues, but like Saturday free agent versus Sunday, and like how much the bids change when those guys go on Sunday, because I guarantee this raised prices like crazy. It probably put him on people's radars that weren't even paying attention to him because like, oh damn, this guy had a huge outing, and all of a sudden he goes for over 100 in 3 different leagues, 2 of them to the same person, cutting the same person too. This person, Giglin Marlin, cut Trent Grisham to pay $109 for Jared Schuster against $39 and $44 backup bids. The 105 was against a 53 backup bid. So it seems as though maybe that person overreacted a bit to Sunday.
Yeah. And I think the fact that he was going up against Seattle, which has been like the 27th best team against left-handed pitching this year, may have aided that. It's nice to see him not walk so many guys because the walks have been a real issue for Schuster. But I'm not like changing much based on this one start. I definitely want to see another start come in and him pitch well and not walk the entire yard before I'm willing to jump on it. And I think this is like a really good example of like not jumping on the hype train during like the end of draft season, because him and Clark Schmidt, Dylan Dodd, like all these guys that people got really, really excited about all of a sudden right at the end of draft season when we had like 6 months to prepare and nobody was really talking about them. That's usually a mistake when nobody has been talking about a dude for 6 months. And Clark, people had been talking about him, but nobody talked about Schuster or Dylan Dodd until March. And there's a reason for that. Like, I think people like jumping on board and being like, oh, he's the guy that I have to get now. I'm not that, especially Dodd was very expensive, but
no, I mean, neither necessarily were, but yeah, there was that like extra hype being built up on them. Again, not to like roast the people that paid 100 on them, like they bought in, they're fine. All the other bids that are kind of in like the 40s and 50s, I'm fine with that on Schuster. That's a little bit of a premium. He probably would have been more like 20s, 30s, if not for the great outing. But this is a good outing to build on. He does get Philly this week, but maybe you bought Schuster for the at Oakland next week. So if he is still available in your leagues, you can keep tabs on him. And if he does well against Philly, you pick him up for Oakland. Or you can even do it early and stash him if you have enough reserves to do something.
Philly's been really bad against lefties this year.
Yes, they have.
So it may not be a bad stream for 2 weeks in a row. So, and I mean, I don't necessarily think it's a bad pickup. I don't want to like act like, oh, people shouldn't have picked him up, because especially and even spending that kind of money, because there was just not a lot out there. If you weren't going to get Liberatore, if you weren't going to get, and you didn't want to get Williamson, like Schuster is one of the few guys really around that was worth really spending money on. Yeah.
Our last pitcher before we go over to the hitters in the deeper league format is Matt Strahm, who was picked up a bunch, but doesn't look like he's returning to the rotation. I think there was some hope maybe that he would, but they picked up Dylan Covey from the Dodgers, and now he's penciled in. It's not confirmed, but there's expectations that he's going to get a 2 start this week, Dylan Covey. So were you back in on Matt Strahm at all? Now that he's a reliever, but maybe going to get some high leverage or get back in the rotation. Where do you currently sit on Matt Strahm? Was he on your bid list at all?
He was on a couple of mine, but really kind of lower end. I don't really know what they're doing. Like, Strahm's been a really good starter, and when they sent down Bailey Falter, I thought, oh, okay, this means Strahm's in the rotation.
That's what it was. Yeah,
forward.
yeah. Falter went down.
So I'm a little surprised that, I mean, Dylan Covey isn't good. Like, we've known this for a while, when, like, even when he was like a White Sox prospect. So, like, I think that's where he was, a White Sox prospect. So, like, I don't know why this is becoming a thing. I feel like this will end poorly for Dylan Covey, and then they'll pivot back to Strahm.
Yeah, I just wish, like, why waste that time of him not pitching 4 or 5 innings at a time so that he's stretched out? That's what you're supposed to, that's kind of what you need with Matt Strahm. He's already kind of a 5 and dive at his best. So now you're taking him back out of the rotation, and he's getting 29, 8, 40, and 24 pitches in his last 4 outings. So that's just going to kind of cycle him back for even when you do want to bring him back in. I kind of wish they were going the other way with it. He's been really good. I ended up picking him up actually in tout head-to-head because we have to have 2 RP spots. And I was just like, you know what? If he somehow gets back in, Stripling, who I had there because he got a start, I was going to cut him either way. I ended up ILing him because it's free ILs in that league. But so that's the only reason I got Strahm. I went for him as like a Hail Mary. If I could be one of the lucky ones to get like the super cheap in the main, I'll take him. But otherwise, I'll just keep Cutter Crawford, which is who I kept, because he's in a very similar position, I think, where he's kind of biding his time in the bullpen. I think he's going to get some multi-inning outings. And then I think he's first man up if anything happens. So
maybe
that's where I was with Strahm.
Maybe him and Covey become like a tandem. Like, could that, I mean...
If he's the second part of that, that'd be great. Yeah, let Covey do 2-3 innings out front, and then 3-4 innings for Strahm afterwards, and then he gets to like a great follow. That'd be perfect, because then his win probability goes way up.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing that really makes a ton of sense here. But, I mean...
I agree.
The Phillies are one of those organizations. I don't really know what they're doing the majority of the time. Like, it's one of the most weirdly constructed teams, like top to bottom. Like, the rotation for the most part is pretty great, but then you look at what they're doing in their bullpen, and then you look at they've done with that defense, and you're like, I don't know what's going on.
Have they done anything with the defense? No.
I mean, Brandon Marsh has been good defensively.
Marsh was a great pickup. Yeah. With
where
his
their offense finally came back to earth.
Yeah, which we knew was going to happen because he was riding pretty hot there. He's still toting a 375 BABIP, by the way. But when you have a defense like that, one player isn't going to fix it. I mean, it's a start, and they do have a great catcher. And so, they've got, some decent up the middle stuff, but their corners can be really tough defensively. Let's go over to the hitters, go back to Cincinnati, talk Matt McLain. He was the prize of the hitting pool, prospect of pretty solid note. Not even the best middle infield prospect in his system, though, because they're loaded there. Ellie De La Cruz is the top guy. We have McLain second to him on their top prospects list. Matt McLain, shortstop. He's up. He's playing shortstop every day. Was this the guy that you were looking at, Matt McLain here? We talked a little bit about him, I think. Was he called up? He was called up.
He was called up on Sunday.
On Sunday, okay. So we didn't get to talk about him.
Because he was called up we got reports that he was coming up like Sunday, I think it was like right after FAAB ran, I think right after FAAB ran for tout. McLain was a guy who was trying to get in a lot of different places, but I wasn't willing to spend the kind of money I was going to need to get him outside of in Tout Wars, where I haven't really spent a lot of money. And so I still had $850, so I spent 120 on him to make sure I got him in Tout. I'm very interested to see, and I should probably check to see if the Reds have released their lineup today, because he played every game except for one last week, and it was the game against the lefty, which he's a righty, but so is Newman and Barrero.
He's in the lineup today.
So they've got 3 games against lefties out of their first 4 this week. So I was talking about this on Sunday. that I was really, really interested to see how many games he played out of those.
And they got 5 total against lefties this week.
Mm-hmm.
Montgomery, Liberatore, Matz, Steele, Smiley. Big opportunity for their right-handers to pop off a little bit. So we'll see if McLain can do it. Off to a slow start, it's nothing. It's a week. We're not going to overjudge it. And yeah, we did talk about him last Monday. Went out, put up, nothing much as far as production, but it didn't really slow down people's interest in him. Folks aren't going to make too much out of a week like that. He went as high as 202 in the main event, a couple 197s, a handful of things in the 190s. He did go under 100 in a handful of leagues and under 50 in 5 leagues. So those teams that got him for 43, 41, 40, and 33, good on them, because that's pretty nice for Matt McLain. I would have loved something like that, of course.
I will say that he does need to hit, because DJ Friedl is going to be back probably at the end of the week or early next week, and that means Jose Barrero is not playing in the outfield anymore.
Yep.
And they could send him back down, because clearly Kevin Newman has some sort of dirt on the general manager there, and there's no reason, as much as I like Kevin Newman coming into the season, there's no reason he should be in the majors at this point. But he clearly has something on the front office there. I don't know,
he's just got him over a barrel, and they love Kevin Newman over there.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great opportunity for McLain, with all those lefties. Don't get hung up on a 46% K rate in 22 plate appearances. He has a 9% swinging strike, which isn't bad.
Mm-hmm.
He had great plate skills coming up. 12 homers, 10 steals in AAA this year in 38 games. So don't be surprised if McLain has a huge week. But if he doesn't, as unfair as it is to judge off of 2 weeks, the Reds might do that and send him back because Friedl coming back. So that's a good call out. Speaking of somebody who did not make a great first impression, but is now back, Edouard Julien returns. And remember, we saw him in Fall League in the Home Run Derby, interestingly enough. He
took a walk. Yeah.
Power's not his thing. Taking walks absolutely is. A little bit of pop, a little bit of speed. When I say power's not his thing, I don't mean he doesn't have power, but it's not transcendent Home Run Derby power. It's decent power, decent speed, great eye. Didn't click immediately, but now back up, particularly with Polanco on the IL. Were you back in on the second round of Edouard Julien after being called up this weekend?
He was in a couple of my waterfalls where I needed a middle infielder. I mean, the thing for me, though, is I don't really need middle infield right now. And so, I wasn't, very aggressive on him. But you know what? Nobody was.
No.
Everybody
I was too
was
aggressive. I did get him. Because I wasn't really going to go big for Matt McLain, so I ended up getting Edouard Julien for 36. I was 14 clear of the next bid, and I was lowering my bid. I actually lowered it, and I'm glad I did. I wish I'd lowered it even a little bit more, of course, but you never know, of course. It's easy to say that once you know where it was, but you're right. The max was 60. There were a couple others in the 50s, but then a bunch in the 40s, 30s, and even some single digits there. So folks weren't as back in on Edouard Julien. I think that might be a bit of obviously I like him to a degree, but this is that classic, if a prospect doesn't dominate when he first comes up, he's a piece of garbage.
Mm-hmm.
But because he has 36 uninspired plate appearances, which aren't even that bad, it's a 93 WRC plus, but because of that, Edouard Julien is just yesterday's news, and he goes so cheap. And I'm not saying he's going to be a god. I just need guys that can maybe do something. My offense is so dreadful. So I went for him.
I think people are just licking their chops right now for Royce Lewis, who hit a 2-homer game in his AAA rehab. So I think people are just well, Julien is just a placeholder, and he probably is.
And he may well be, yeah. And you don't have to pay much. So if he is, it won't hurt any of us that picked him up. If he's a $36 placeholder for 2 weeks for me, I'll be fine.
Lewis can play everywhere.
True.
So, and I don't even know where they want him to play, because he's so injury prone. I feel like they're going to try to put him in the place that makes the most sense for him to stay healthy.
DH? They're already doing that with another guy.
They can't do that with Buxton, apparently.
They're doing that with somebody else already.
It's so weird, because this is the most injury prone team. But the rotation somehow outside of Molly is just doing fine. Like, Pablo Lopez is a guy who's never been able to stay healthy, and he's just cruising. Sonny Gray's never been able to stay healthy. He's just
great. Yeah.
Cruising. Like, Bailey Ober's never been able to stay healthy. He looks great. Like, but the offense for some reason can't stay healthy.
No, they cycle guys in left and right, but then, it's these guys that when they come back, they look great too. Kirilloff hitting homers whenever his wrists cooperate for the 5 days at a time that they do. Correa's had his issues. You mentioned Buxton. So we'll see if they can stay healthy. But I liked Julien as a decent little pickup. Nothing too crazy. I do think it is a deep league situation. I really wouldn't be going too crazy for him in a shallower format. I saw Owen Miller got picked up with Milwaukee. What's the story? I guess he just played a bunch last week, but that was a bunch of lefties. Do you think people?
He led off. So okay. I think he was leading off, had a home run. But it was
two lefties this week though.
Yeah, I think that.
So do you think people kind of were overzealous on Miller because they saw all the ones next to his name for leading off against lefties?
Yep. Pretty much.
I mean, his line looks great right now. 2 homers, 4 steals with a great triple slash, yielding a 139 OPS plus for Owen Miller. But I think that's just picking on a bunch of lefties on the schedule. So I don't know. In fairness to those folks, nobody really paid off the charts or anything for Owen Miller. The max was 50.
I got him for like $1 in a league, like where I, just go, if they have 3 lefties coming up, like maybe I can throw them in and stuff. And but yeah,
you can play him the way NFBC does with the Monday through Thursday and then the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You can play him the weekend because 2 of the lefties this week are there Friday and Saturday against Alex Wood and Sean Manaea for Owen Miller. What about Brenton Doyle over in Colorado? Obviously, playing in Colorado instantly brings you a modicum of fantasy interest because it's Colorado. They're there all week this week. Brenton Doyle is a prospect of some acclaim from their outfield. 4 homers, 6 steals with a modest line, 262, 294, 523. I think we even comped him as a right-handed Sam Hilliard when he came up in terms of his swing and miss, power, speed capability. What are you seeing from Brenton Doyle? Did he generate any interest for you this week out in Colorado?
Yeah, he's been hot recently, like over
Blazing.
the last week. Yeah, over the last week he's been really, really hot. And they have 7 games in Colorado this week. So yeah, I grabbed him in a couple leagues. I had him stashed in a league. I mean, he is who he is, though. Like, these are going to be like huge up and down, hot and cold stretches. But you get 7 games at home in Colorado, and he's hot right now. So you kind of ride in, and drop him when they go on the road next time.
Yeah, and it would be nice if there were some lefties mixed in there, but there is just the one. So, but it's a week at home with a guy who has 4 homers and 6 steals in 22 games. I get why people took the chance. And similar to Miller, he was more expensive, but he wasn't expensive. Nobody even paid triple digits for Brenton Doyle. So they're hoping to spike something.
He's hitting 375 since the 14th, but he's also got a 462 BABIP and a 33% strikeout rate. Like,
those don't go well together.
It's not gonna last really long, but I mean, could he stay hot for another week? Absolutely. So you throw a couple bucks, and like I said, as soon as he cools back down or they leave Colorado, you throw him back into the waiver wire.
Yeah, I think that's a standard stream. I got no issues with that. Totally makes sense why people did it. If I had an outfield need, I would have probably put some interest in Doyle myself. What about Mark Vientos? He was a bit of a tough pickup because at least in the NFBC format, he's UT only, and they haven't really unclogged the first DH situation. And so while he is an interesting power hitter of some note, I had a hard time really getting in there because of the UT only. When is he even going to qualify? How much is he even going to play? Because Beatty's still there. Vientos is basically a right-handed, a short-side platoon for him. And Escobar hasn't gone anywhere either. So I like Vientos as an idea. I didn't really like him as a pickup this week for anything more than maybe a single-digit price, which a handful of people did get him for. What'd you think of Mark Vientos for the Mets?
Yeah, I grabbed him in a league where he had third base eligibility already, and spent like $1 or $2 just on the shot that maybe they DFA Daniel Vogelbach at some point and they let him play.
That would be huge.
Because I mentioned this on Sunday. Like, there's no reason Daniel Vogelbach needs to be taking up a strong side platoon roster spot. So, I don't know that they're going to, but like someone I think asked me in my chat today, like when is Mauricio going to come up, and when is Vientos going to play every day? And I was like, when are the Mets going to get new management? Like, I don't know. Like,
when are they going to clear out some of this logjam to play these guys? You know, I got to get my weekly mention of my buddy Greg in, and he is the Mets fan, and he's like, get Canha the hell out of there. I'm sure he would love to just see them cut Escobar, Pham, Canha, and just start bringing up and Vogelbach, and just start bringing up the youngsters. They've got talent, but a lot of these guys don't have a great spot to play right now. And so I like what you did with Vientos, where he has the third base eligibility, but in the NFBC format where it was UT only, it was a tough sell for me.
Yeah.
What about Trevor Larnach? Going back to Minnesota real quick, maybe should have brought him up at the same time as Julien. This is another guy that I really like in theory. You know, he's got some power, interesting corner outfielder, but he's kind of an all or nothing type guy. He strikes me as a bit of a younger Brent Rooker, and I know Brent Rooker's having like the time of his life right now, but I'm talking about like true skill in terms of that all or nothing power. 35% strikeout rate, 5% home run rate, or excuse me, 5 homers, I should say, for Larnach, 97 WRC plus. Any interest in Larnach this week for the Twins?
I mean, I guess if, especially if Buxton's going to miss time, then that can maybe more cement his role. It was really fun when Larnach and Rook were on the same team because they could just platoon them. And then, hey, you got one really good player, you know. I like Larnach, like you said, as an idea, but as an actual fantasy player, especially in weekly format, it's just so difficult to figure out. Like, you know,
at least it's 6 righties this week.
Yeah,
and Larnach.
The nice thing about the Central is there just aren't a lot of lefties.
Yeah, or good pitchers.
Yeah, that's it.
Outside of Cleveland, well, outside of the team that he's on.
When you talk about Michael Kopech was amazing on my bench this week.
Shut up, dude. We'll talk about that joker in a moment.
Yeah.
I don't even care though. By the way, like have fun with that, folks. We'll talk about him in the shallow leagues. Mickey Moniak, former 1-1 overall, and I feel like that has to be mentioned every time he's talked about because that's kind of the claim to fame for him right now. But did a little bit this week, got folks a little bit interested. He batted leadoff when he did play. He played 4 of the last 6 games. They were all against righties, but he's not playing every day, so he's not in like a strict platoon or anything. Mickey Moniak doing anything to get you interested in him?
20% swing and strike rate, 44% O swing.
That's horrendous. Those are so bad, folks. If you don't have context for those, just know that they're terrible.
Yeah.
40% K rate is off the charts. 40% is nuts. So yeah,
and it's backed up by that 20% swing and strike rate.
Exactly.
I mean, he's got a 78% zone contact, which is 7% below league average. Like, no,
didn't even make my bid list.
No,
I do wish him well because, you know, a 1-1. I don't want to see him fail and then have to kind of wear that his whole career. It just doesn't seem like much fun. But I don't see a whole lot here. Sorry, folks. I probably would rather have this guy, but I didn't go for him either. Oscar Mercado is back on the fantasy landscape. Is he doing anything for you? Back with the Cardinals, which is where the Guardians originally got him from.
Not really, because the only time they face a lefty is Brandon Williamson on the first day, and I think that's probably the only day he plays. They're waiting to get other guys back. Dylan Carlson's on the IL. Tyler Neal's on the IL, and they need somebody who can play center, and so you know, as a backup. So he'll play against some lefties and maybe steal a couple bases off the bench. But no, I mean, Jason made the joke. Jason made the joke on Sunday, and I kind of right there with him. It's like I didn't even know he was still playing baseball, to be quite honest.
I mean, I did only because I had seen that he went back to St. Louis, but I totally understand people that aren't keeping tabs on Mercado. He does have 15 steals in 34 games at AAA, so you're right about maybe getting a few bags sporadically here, but it's a super deep league play at best anyway. Probably NL only is where you want Mercado right now. What about Gene Segura? I see him getting picked up a bunch. I think part of it is that Miami's going to Coors, and he is a bit of a name. I mean, I cut him in my main event, so whoever picked him up, have fun. I'm good. But what do you think of Gene Segura? You see anything from him this summer where he kind of gets back into being the guy that he was drafted to be, which is like a decent double-double with a good batting average? Because he's nowhere near that right now. He looks terrible.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, he makes a lot of zone contact. The problem is he's swinging out at everything outside the zone too. So like he's really got to like rein in some of that plate discipline that we've seen from him, when he's been good. And being in Miami's a really tough spot because like his power doesn't play there. Like it just doesn't.
Exactly.
And I think that, one of the reasons why when he signed with Miami, I think some people are like, oh, he's going to play every day. And I was like, oh, I don't know that I want him to, because he's just kind of empty average and he's not even giving you that at this point. So
that was the part that was killing me. Was
Yeah.
my team's batting average is my body weight, which is not great, and so I can't have somebody like Segura. I could have taken an empty average.
No, you want your team to be my body weight, not your body weight.
That would be much more beneficial to me right now,
Yeah.
as far as the batting average. But anyway, sorry, not to make it all about myself. I'm just tired of my guys hitting my fucking body weight every day, dude. It's so insane. Anyway, let's get into the shallow leagues, and we're going to move up the NFBC landscape a little bit here because there were a few leagues where this guy was available because he was drafted and then cut, which is how it works for prospects. But otherwise, Bobby Miller was more in the like Yahoo, ESPN, home league standpoint where you can pick up anybody whenever you want, so people could jump him without having debuted. He's slated to debut this week. For the Dodgers, Bobby Miller, big-time pitching prospect. A lot of places rank him higher than Gavin Stone. They're pretty close. You can kind of see them similar. They get there differently, but their composite profiles are kind of similar, I think, in terms of what they can be, which is mid-rotation guys. Were you in on Bobby Miller anywhere where he was available already?
Not really. I mean, I put some bids in, but again, I wasn't spending very much after spending so much on Yuri Perez last week. And you don't really want him for this week because he's going to Atlanta. Where you want him is next week when he starts off a two-step with Miami. And so I totally understand picking him up this week and holding on your bench until next week when you can start him for that potential two-step. So that being said, those of us in NFBC who couldn't pick him up are really hoping he gets destroyed in Atlanta. So the prices aren't insane coming next week.
He was available in 4 mains.
Mm-hmm.
Have you checked this at all?
I have not.
Do you want to guess what the high was? It was particularly out from the other 3.
237.
329.
Holy crap.
With a 172 backup. And then a remarkably efficient 171, 167. So that person probably felt great. Going, yeah, I went high, but I paid really nicely. And then the other 2 went over by a good bit, 158 to 87, 113 to 74. So those were the 4 leagues where Bobby Miller was drafted and then cut. So that means he was pick upable before he debuts, because otherwise in the main event, minor leaguers aren't available until they debut. He hasn't been great at AAA. It's been 14 innings. I don't want to make too much of it. He is a big-time prospect. I am interested, but I feel you. Because with what you said about like maybe getting beat up this week, because that if he dominates at Atlanta, that 329 is going to look good. If he happens to go out there and drop like 6 innings with 8 strikeouts or something, then James Gable, who paid the 329, is going to be like, I got off on easy street.
James is a really good player too.
Excellent player. Yeah. So I don't bring it up to shade him. I just wanted to see if you could guess what the high was there. He wanted to solidify that he got Bobby Miller.
What was the backup?
172. So in line with the other ones. In fact, that was the second highest bid of the 8 bids that we can see here, because you can see the bid and the runner up.
So that 172 bid in a main event this week.
Yeah, I know. Bobby Miller was the single highest pickup, because Liberatore maxed at 279 and McLain at 202. So that's really interesting there. And again, like you said, James Gable, excellent player. So curious to see how that one works. We did talk a little Gavin Stone during the two-step show, so I won't go too crazy on it. But you talk about that tough week. He gets the brunt of it, too, because not only does he go to Atlanta, but on the weekend he goes to Tampa Bay. Is this an exception that you would make of, like, I would roster this guy but not start him in the two-step? Or would you even roster Gavin Stone right now? Because he hasn't looked all that great himself. Not that we're making a lot of judgments off such a small sample, but where do you stand on Stone right now?
I mean, I think I'd roster any Dodgers starting pitcher just because their offense is so good, especially in a 15-team league. Like, their offense is so good that he might give up 6 earned runs and still get a win.
And still cop it up, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
he was getting picked up in the shower leagues this week too, so there was some love for Stone despite the difficulty of this two-step.
That being said, I wouldn't start him this week.
I wouldn't either, and that's why it would have been tough for me to really go for him this week in those RotoWire Online Championships, is where I get this list from. Those are 12-teamers, and a bunch of people paid triple digits. And you got to figure if you're paying triple digits, you feel like you got to start him. And I'm terrified of this two-step. I would be terrified of this with Dustin May, like a healthy Dustin May, let alone Gavin Stone, who hasn't done anything on the major league level. This is devastating. Not only is it Atlanta, Tampa Bay, but it's both on the road. Whew, that is tough. And it doesn't get any better next week when the Yankees come to visit Gavin Stone. So he's got 3 brutal starts in a row here. If he can show something here, I think you really start to feel confident about where he is the rest of the year. If he gets beat up, though, isn't there a world where he starts looking back at AAA if he doesn't do well in these 3 starts?
I mean, potentially, but the Dodgers don't have a ton of options right now. The Dodgers
I heard Fernando Valenzuela's been working out.
Yeah, I mean, they might need him. It's so interesting to see.
Got the knuckleball going again.
I mean, this is why, how we talk about every year. It's like, oh, this team has too much pitching and they need to trade someone, and then we get to this point in the year and it's like, oh, there's a reason why these teams don't want to trade surplus pitching.
Exactly. We selfishly want it for fantasy because we want so-and-so 6 starter to be a fantasy viable option. It takes 5 minutes in baseball time for that to be sopped up, and you have no depth.
I mean, we were talking about beginning of the season, there were 3 teams with just amazing starting pitching depth, and that was the Rays, the Dodgers, and the Marlins. And the Marlins are the only ones who still have that pitching depth.
Yep. I mean, the Rays have lost 2 freaking aces the way they were pitching, Rasmussen and Springs. It just comes at you. It comes at you so quickly with pitcher injuries. It's a nightmare. All right, let's talk about this dickhead. I'm just joking. I don't have anything.
I'm not. Screw him.
No, I don't have anything against Michael Kopech, the person. He's all over the place, though. Brilliant outing, okay? 8 innings of 1-hit ball, no runs, no walks, 10 punches against KC. And you can say it's against KC. Before that, he couldn't get me, you, and 7 others out. So I'm not even going to take credit away from him because it was KC.
And KC's been hot.
I was going to bring that up, too. They've actually been doing some things. So, beautiful outing here. You said it was on your bench, so you still have him. I cut him a long time ago.
Yes.
Does this change how you're feeling about Kopech? Are you putting him back in the lineup, say, this week, then, when he has a trip to Cleveland on deck?
Yeah, the second worst team in baseball against right-handed pitching.
They're a nightmare ball club. I would start Kopech against them, too.
I think I am. I have a couple situations on a couple different teams and really important teams where I have to decide for 1 or 2 spots between Michael Kopech, Yuri Perez, who's going, to Colorado, and then I think to the Angels.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's on a par with Gavin Stone,
and then Jack Flaherty, who's also we're going to talk about next. All of them had one really, really brilliant start, and then one not very good start, but against a tough team.
And guess what? He also gets Cleveland.
Yeah, exactly. He also gets Cleveland, and so I'm gonna be racking my brain here for the next few hours trying to figure out. I think I'm starting Yuri, just because he's been so good, and it's a 2-step. So
it's a 2-step. I know it's tough, but it's a 2-step.
Yeah,
I think I would too. Now you only pick one of those 3.
I've got one league where I have to pick 1, and then I've got one league where I have to pick 2. Yeah, damn, so it's tough, especially because my main event, I'm almost below 5 ERA now.
Boom.
I'm crawling my way back in, my top, freaking, offense, and no pitching, it's starting to the pitching starting to churn a little bit.
Again, our team would be perfect together if we could just meld them, because my pitching.
Well, I don't know why we didn't just share a team and just
at some point we should.
You know what? Offense.
Yeah, you just draft the hitters. I draft the pitchers. So you did. See
I tried to get Nick Pollock to do a team like that with me, and he ended up not coming to Vegas.
That's true. Didn't he get sick?
Yeah, he got sick.
Yeah, he got sick. He was going to come to Vegas. So. You did get to see a start from Flaherty since his gem, though, and it was back to being bad again, but it was the Dodgers. And this is Cleveland, as you point out. They're dreadful. I think I lean Kopech.
You know what Cleveland can do is they can take walks.
Exactly, and that's his biggest issue this
Flaherty. So I think I am going to do Kopech over Flaherty. with Yuri Perez and just pray. Like, I don't know what Kopech is though. Like, this feels like a trap. I was talking to somebody about it, and I was like, I'm going to put him back in my lineup, and he's just going to effing destroy me. Like,
undoubtedly.
Like
4 homers. It's going to be like the game that we watched where we saw every consecutive homer in like the span of.
But the nice thing is Cleveland doesn't hit home runs. They're not allowed.
That should help you. If anything, it will be like a BABIP type game where they just get a bunch of hits off of him. So you hope that doesn't happen because he's not usually prone to that. Usually when Kopech gets clocked, it's his own volition with the walks mixed with a couple key homers that end up being 2-3 run shots because he walked somebody. So they might not be the right team.
Half the lineup hits the ball to the ground. So I think I'm okay with it.
So I would go Kopech too. Flaherty's my guy sitting out in your situation there. Let's talk some hitters in the shallower formats. Jorge Soler is quietly having a solid little rebound season. So he's starting to get picked back up in the shallower formats here. I don't know if we're going to get that KC season again where he hit, 48 homers, but he has 12, and a 247, 324, 518 line is darn good. I mean, you can't really expect that much more out of Jorge Soler. Is he back in all formats viable as a power bat right now? I'd say all formats, with at least 5 outfielders, because 10 team, 3 outfielder, I still think he's more of like a bench play or play him for the Colorado series or whatever. But anything with 5 outfielders, I'm feeling like Soler's worthy of it. What do you think?
I think he might even be valuable in those shallower formats. It's the highest on contact of his career. It's his highest barrel percentage of his career. He's pulling the ball more than he has in his career. He's putting the ball in the air more. Like, he is just like, I am jacking this ball, and he's making good decisions inside the zone. I need to talk to Jeff. Jeff needs speed. I need power in Tout Wars.
We got
he's got Soler, and I've got just a crap ton of stolen bases. So I might need to text Jeff here after the pod and see if we can work something out.
And hey, he's pacing for 97 ribbies, which on Miami isn't easy. So Soler is really taking care of it right now. And so I see why he's getting picked up in those shallower formats. I agree. I think I'm picking him up pretty much anywhere right now. If you need power at all, you go for it. Let's talk a little bit more about Christopher Morel. We talked about him last week as a deep league pickup. He is now making his way into the shallow formats. He had a brilliant week. All of his flaws are still there, though. I still feel like this is a hot streak. I thought it was in the minors, which is why I wasn't like aggressively seeking him out. I do feel like I'm going to regret not picking him up the week I picked up Alec Thomas, though. But 8 homers already in the majors, 1 steal, 370, 396, 957 is his slug, not his OPS. But he still has a 38% K rate and a 4% walk rate. Where are you at on Morel in shallow formats? He's obviously an easy hold for now in deep formats. But is he a pickup and hold in shallower formats right now, even after you missed the 8 homers?
So I've already picked like the names I'm going to write for my buy low sell high article, and I'm leading the sell high portion off of Christopher Morel.
I think you have to.
Last year he had the worst in zone contact rate of anybody in the major leagues, and it is worse this year.
Oh no!
Yeah, I mean it's not by much. Last year was 68.9%. It's 68.6%. That is not good. He has a 20% swinging strike rate. Like, this is not going to end well. If you can get someone buying right now, I'm taking just about anything I can get.
Yeah, because I think you can. It's a 57% fly ball rate and a 50% homer to fly ball rate for Christopher Morel. Like, everything's going well right now. Everything's clicking. I think people are going to see, he was a power speed guy last year. Maybe I was a little skeptical on him, but here he is hitting the ground running. I guarantee you can get more than a waiver pickup, which is obviously how you got him in most leagues. So I agree on selling high because I think it is viable. A lot of times we say sell high, or the general fantasy community says sell high on this random waiver pickup, but nobody's really going to buy. I think on Morel, you can find a buyer, even with these obvious flaws. I think some people are just thinking that he's a younger Adolis Garcia.
Well, there was so much heat on him last year, and then so many people who were publicly upset about him not making the team. And now that he's up and crushing, and he crushed in AAA, I think people are abnormally high on him, and I think he's going to crash and burn at some point. If he doesn't, and if he figures out a way to keep this going, good for him. But I just don't see this as being sustainable at all.
Yeah, process over results, and the process here is get out from under this in trade leagues where you can. Obviously, in like non-trades, you just ride it out, and then when you start to see things come down, you can either bench him or maybe even cut him, depending on how bad it gets. But this is how bad it can get, because he didn't hit 8 homers in 5 minutes when he first came up last year, but he had 7 and 7 homers and steals through his first 40 games last year. In the final 72 games, 8 homers, 3 steals on 7 attempts, by the way. So he was underwater in terms of success rate, with a 197 average, 283 OBP, and 375 slug for Morel. That's in 235 plate appearances from July on last year, and got moved down to the 9 spot, was losing PT. He is as volatile as it gets. When he's hot, he is rosterable in every format, no matter what. Even in AL only, I might roster him just in case. And then when he's cold, I wouldn't roster him in an NL Central league. Like that's the gamut that Christopher Morel runs. So, I mean, good luck is all I can say.
The only nice thing is, like, this is a pretty good week for him to be like in the lineup every day. You know, you've got the Mets, so Cody Senga, McGill, Carrasco, and then the Reds, Hunter Green, Brandon Williamson, and Graham Ashcraft. So, like, maybe you wait till after this week, and then you go to look.
Because then he gets Tampa Bay, San Diego, and then we'll see what's up. Again, you can't do anything but play Christopher Morel right now. We're not saying to preemptively cut him, but just keep close tabs on him. Because as this comes down to earth, you can maybe make a move before it bottoms out completely. But enjoy the run right now, because he's been amazing. And shouts to him. Christopher Morel, you've been insane. And we'll close out with Jake Burger. He's now making his way down to the shallower formats. He's got 10 homers on the season, but not only that, but a 280, 340, 688 slash line, which is fantastic. Good for a 1028 OPS. Things are going very well. He's almost doubled he's more than doubled his walk rate. Excuse me. That's his home run rate. He's upped his walk rate very little, from 6 to 7%. And he's cut his strikeout rate from 31 to 29. So it's basically the same plate skills. The BABIP isn't even up. It's all about this power right now. I do believe in Jake Burger as a legit power guy. Not quite a 409 ISO, which is your slugging minus your batting average. What do you think about Burger, and how long are you riding this train right now?
I think I'm going to ride it for a little while. The plate skills aren't great. He's got a sub 80% zone contact, when 85% is the league average. Swing outside of the zone 44% of the time. So, like, the strikeouts are going to stick around, and he's not going to get this lucky. But he rockets the ball. Like, and this isn't a guy that you are expecting to hit 280. Rest of the way. He's probably going to hit 240, but he's going to do it with a good amount of power. And power is something that's hard to find right now. So,
yes. Oh my God, yes.
And the White Sox have made comments like they're committed to playing him every day, even when Eloy comes back. So I think Moncada is the one who loses out on playing time here. And Burger.
I mean, he kind of has to, right? Like
you would think so, but I mean, money talks, and he's under contract for another year after this. So
true, but some.
I think they'll figure out a way to get Burger in the lineup. Maybe that's playing second base. Maybe because he has played some second base at the major league level, so maybe he becomes their everyday second baseman.
Well, what about putting Moncada back over there? He's played some second base too.
Moncada's a really good defender at third.
Yeah, I guess it's. I mean, isn't second base ahead of third base on the defensive spectrum? Although if it's his arm that drives his success, you want the bigger arm over at third. So either way,
I think Burger goes to second. But either way, like
I can see that.
I think he is a guy that you can ride for a little while. I mean, he may go ice cold, and these underlying plate skills comes back to haunt him a little bit. But they're not like Christopher Morel bad. They're
no. They're standard issue power hitter type bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Where he can create those cold streaks. Burger or Soler, shallower format.
Oh, Soler.
Yeah, me too. But I do like Burger. So if you didn't get Soler and you have a corner opening or a third base opening, then Burger can be your guy for that power. Nothing on closer corner this week because not too much changeover. It's been such a tough season to speculate for saves. Yeah. And to me, that feels a little weird because you would think with more teams not committing to guys that there'd be more opportunities. But the problem is all these guys that you pick up, you're hoping to get like a save a week randomly because these things are so disjointed. So once you step back and think about it, like, it does make sense, because it's not this guy goes down, this guy's the guy. It's the ace goes down, here's 4 guys who are going to get saves the next 2 weeks while he's out. And that's been the tough part with speculating for saves. And that's why I just don't do it anymore. The last couple of years, I've been committed to getting studs. And hey, sometimes they don't work out, right? You can pick the wrong guy or they get hurt. But in the draft, I am trying to get guys who are considered locked in closers, so I don't have to play this game in the waiver wire, because it doesn't seem fun.
I mean, like, just pay for your saves. Like, I mean, if you want to take a gamble on your second or third guy, fine. But like, there's a reason why, like, Felix Bautista, Josh Hader, Jordan Romano, Emmanuel Colosset, David Bednar, they're all in the top 8 in saves. If you wanted to gamble on a guy like Carlos Estevez, who's second in saves right now, that's fine. That's your second guy. But
then if you listen to this show, you were in on him, because we promoted the shit. I loved him. Got a little dodgy there in spring. I won't deny it, because he did not have a good spring. I was like, oh, is he going to lose this job?
I thought he was going to lose it.
But I loved Estevez, and
I think he got a little bit lucky too that Chiata got hurt.
Nobody took it. And nobody took the job from him, right? He did open the door, Estevez did, and nobody walked through, and they stayed committed to him basically because they had to, and now he got back to what I was hoping that he could be outside of Coors. I didn't expect him to be tied for second in saves in baseball either, so I'm not patting myself on the back too hard here. But yeah, I paid for Hader, and then I got Evan Phillips, the guy I believed in for the Dodgers, and he's got 7 saves. So I just think people, when they say I'll get saves off the wire, they don't account for how much that can eat up your FAAB.
Yeah.
Even with the 1,000 budget, those knick-knack 30s, 40s, 50s, damn near every week, unless you land on this year's Bautista or whatever, it really kills you. And who's even emerged this year as a guy, like as a locked-in guy? Has anybody that's been available? Let's turn it back to the 15 team, a little bit of the deeper format here. Sorry, shallow folks. But has there been anybody that's even been available at any point that is a dude right now?
I mean, that's a good dude? No.
Yeah,
because I mean, Pierce Johnson emerged, but he's got a 5 ERA.
Yeah, he's Sean Chaconing the shit out of your team right now with those saves.
Yeah, I mean, Will Smith, he's kind of emerged.
That will be one. I'll give that one, because he has 8 saves, and he's looked great. He was a late pick for some, but
you might have dropped him when he like momentarily lost that job and went and got to pick Leclerc back up or whatever, and. Like I got Will Smith in my main event league and instantly regretted it because I had dropped Aroldis Chapman to get him,
and he was looking great.
And we thought Aroldis Chapman was going to be the dude, and I mean it's turned out really well and lucky for me. But
hey, sometimes you gotta be lucky. Anybody that says that they win leagues without being lucky is just full of shit. Like, no matter what you do, no matter how great of a player, the best players, Phil Dussault, the guy, King guy and NFBC, admits that he gets lucky. And talk about any of those top tier guys over at the NFBC, anyone worth their salt admits that, hey, you got to do the right things, but then you also got to get some good luck. That's why you trust your process, and then you hope to get a little luck sprinkled on top, and then bingo, bango, bongo, you start
That's winning. Why it's so fun to see some of these guys complaining about, like, the season and stuff like that, and, like, some of the really, really good players being like, oh, this season sucks. I hate fantasy baseball because so many guys have gotten hurt. It's just, sometimes if you're going to get lucky a lot of times, sometimes you're going to get unlucky.
Sometimes you have to have the bad season, and it's like. Also, I feel like the NFBC landscape's getting tougher too. So it's like you're comparing.
They're getting a lot more press.
Like they wanted the NFBC to be more focused. So now there's going to be more people playing. It's going to be a tougher landscape.
And there's going to be more information for it. People are, like learning about how to play the game properly and stuff. And
I don't think the game has passed those folks by. Those that are
absolutely not.
No, but they're the bug instead of the windshield. And, that happens to everybody. It doesn't matter how great you are at this game. You're going to
No one had a worse season last year than me. And, and I ate it and I owned it. And I'm now like enjoying this year because it's going fairly well outside of that 5 ERA in my main event.
Yeah, I mean,
but even that, I'm still in third or fourth place in my league.
that gives you so much upside too. Because if you can
if I can
shave
just
that ERA
get
down,
that ERA and whip
then
down,
you've got a
that'll be
real
okay.
shot to push forward. So anyway, those are the pickups. Good luck to everybody. If there's anybody that we didn't cover that you really have some questions about, hit us up on Twitter. Justin always does his chat on Mondays too. So before the pod, if you want to get in on somebody to ask him, go make sure you're there on the front page. I do mine on Wednesdays, and always taking questions there about guys to pick up. Justin, good luck this week in your leagues, and good luck getting some sleep tonight.
Thanks. I'm going to go take a nap right now.
Sounds good. Take care.
Take it easy.